Hey everybody, and welcome to another video. Matt Solomon here with Mike Salata and Rick Solomon. Very happy to be with you guys today, and very happy to dive into a topic near and dear to my heart, which is how to love your practice again. And so, what we've seen a lot is a lot of accountants who start to feel lost, who start to lose the excitement, who start to lose their sense of purpose, and who start to lose the enthusiasm that they once had when they were early in building their firm. So we're going to dive into that, and we're going to provide you guys some awesome solutions so that you can really begin to step into this place where you're in love with your practice again. And Rick, I'm going to turn it to you in a minute, but I just want to share, there was a client who joined us, and I remember reading, we have an intake form before we work with clients. And I remember reading it and seeing words like, I have resentment towards myself and my practice. I have resentment towards my clients who I love, but I'm resenting them because I'm not enjoying the work and they're sort of a pain in the butt and it's not very profitable and I'm missing time with my family. So I want to dive into this, Rick, and I want to and Mike, I want to explore the things that you have seen, but let's just kind of talk about it overall. How are you seeing and what's showing up for you guys as you coach in terms of people losing excitement, purpose, enthusiasm in their firms?
Yeah, I love the topic because I lived it, and I want to share just a little bit of my story because what I lived is something I see a lot of accountants living. And so when I started my practice, I just couldn't have been more excited. I had been working for a large international firm in New York City, wanted to do my own thing, and so I started it up, and I was marketing, and I was getting clients, and it was just exciting as hell, and I was loving it, and more business was coming in, and things were going really well. And so I was very excited. Things were going well. I kept growing, and I kept taking on more clients and more clients, and my goal was to just reach certain dollar amounts of revenue. That was really all I thought about. And so to do that, the idea was take pretty much whatever clients I could get, as much as I could get, big, small, this industry, that industry, just kept growing it. Excuse me. And then from there, I started to think about what other avenues of service can I provide. So the practice kept growing and adding pieces on and doing different kinds of services. And what I noticed after a while is it happened very slowly. It was like this transition where in the beginning I was all excited, and ultimately over the years, I felt like I became a slave to the practice. There was so much work to do, so much work to get out the door, so many services I provided, so many clients to accommodate in different ways. It was really hard to take time off because there was always deadlines to meet, never-ending deadlines. And so ultimately, I enjoyed it less and less and less. And then I noticed I started to feel stressed about it because I was always working. And even when I took time off, mentally, I was still working. And so, and it's something we see a lot of. We see accountants who, we all start out loving our practice, but we kind of get caught up in this machine of building and growing and adding and putting pieces onto it. And ultimately, you just kind of, and we see it a lot, you just kind of lose that enthusiasm. And Mike, I know you see that a lot. You work with a lot of accountants. I'm curious as to what's your view on all this?
You said a word that just really stood out to me, slave. Slave to the business. Often, and I've been doing this over 20 years, and the story hasn't changed much for many people. To grow, they get more clients. And if I want to make more money, I need more clients. And what happens is you get more clients, you get more work, but then you're always working. And then you got not just one deadline, because it's a deadline for each of those clients. So you're just a slave to this work and this treadmill or hamster wheel, and just going round and round and round. And every time you try to get your head above water, you say, I need another client, or I have another client, or this one's calling me, or this one hasn't paid me, so now you have to follow up, or the work comes in late. And it's just this ever ongoing cycle of playing catch up or getting more work and not much time for yourself.
Yeah, and what gets even worse and builds on that is because most firms that we see, a lot of them are making some money, but not nearly as profitable as they could be or should be. And so to make more money, to increase profits, the goal is, let me bring in more business. So if you think about it, it's kind of silly because we have this model that's not working very well, and we're not making as much as we should be or want to be. So we say, well, okay, let me bring in more business. Let me bring in more of what doesn't work. We don't think that, but That's the reality of what we're doing. And so we pile on and we add on, and hey, what if I add these services and those services? What if I sell insurance? And what if I do payroll? And so we put these pieces together, but it's sort of like we're starting, I think, from a false premise. We're starting from a premise that says there's not much business out there. It's kind of a scarcity thinking mindset. Better take what I can have, grab whatever business I can get. And we end up all over the place. And ultimately, we spread ourselves very, very thin. I remember having this very same conversation with an accountant not long ago. And he said to me, sometimes, Rick, I feel spread so thin that you can see through me. And we chuckled because it was a clever thing to say, but it wasn't really funny at all. And that's what it gets to feel like after a while. You're just really spread thin. And I kind of think of it sometimes as the default practice. It's the practice that happens to you because you're just trying to keep bring in more business, more money, and keep it going. But in the end, it really loses its luster. It really starts to lose its luster because if you look at how you're spending your days, how you're spending your time, the work you're doing, the clients you're spending time with, it becomes less and less rewarding with that routine kind of work. And especially if you're like most accounting firms, you've got a bunch of clients that you don't really enjoy being with that much. Again, it's sort of this conglomeration of clients and engagements and things that generate revenue that together maybe give you a decent living, maybe don't. But in the end, it's like, where's the enjoyment? Where's the pleasure? Where's the joy in all this? And then what happens, I had a conversation with someone this morning at breakfast. I had a breakfast meeting with a local CPA that I've been coaching. And, he was talking about, you could see in his eyes that it was just, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. You could see that he lost the luster and excitement of what he was doing. And he was working crazy hours all the time. But he resigned himself to that. He said, well, it is what it is. And I don't mind working weekends because I only work a few hours on Sunday. The things that we adjust to and adapt to, which is good in a way, I guess, because if it is the reality, it's better to adjust to it than not. But we shouldn't be accepting a practice that we don't really love. I think there's a much, much greater possibility, much greater possibility.
That reminds me, Rick, you and I were doing a workshop not too long ago where we were asking accountants what their ideal practice would look like. Mm-hmm. And if you recall, and it's a funny story, but not so funny, one of the people said, oh, my dream practice, I would be working, 60 hours a week? If I can get to 60 hours a week, that would be awesome. 60 hours a week. That's your dream.
That's your dream? 60 hours? Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing though. And that is a story that, Mike, is an example that always echoes in all of our minds, and we seem to bring that up a lot because it's remarkable, and it shows. It's just such beautiful proof of what we start to accept for ourselves. And when we start, it's no wonder that we lose love in our practices. It's no wonder, because everything that we just talked about, we have these high hopes going into it that we're going to make some good money as accountants, and we're going to get to help people, and we're going to have a lifestyle and all these things. And we buy into the dream of what's possible, but then slowly over time, we're not as efficient as we need to be. We're not getting profitable work or whatever it is. Slowly over time, we just slowly miss one piece and one piece and one piece away from the dream. And it's like the airplane, in the beginning, you don't notice a 1 or 2% change in direction in an airplane. But over the course of a 5-hour flight, that's the difference between Northern California and Southern California. And so the same thing happens with our practices, is we may not really notice how we're slipping away from our dream as our practice unfolds over a few years or a few decades or whatever it is. But all of a sudden we open our eyes and we step back, and it's like, what the hell happened to me? Why is this my practice? Why am I working weekends? And it's like, you accept everything because it's one little increment at a time, and all of a sudden it hits you in the face, and you realize that you don't love your practice, you resent your clients, you're not making the money you want, you're not able to save for retirement the way you wanted to, and all these things. And that's the reality of what a lot of accountants are dealing with. But here's a really cool piece, and then guys, I want to talk about some solutions so that we can share with those who are listening some things that they can do about it. But here's a wonderful thing, I think, to share, that all this stuff, whatever your practice looks like now, I think it's important to acknowledge whatever it is and really, truly be raw and vulnerable with yourself and have the courage to look at it and reflect on it and say whether or not this is what you really want. And we'll talk about solutions in a minute, but just the courage to say, you know what, I don't really want to work this many hours anymore. And yeah, I got comfortable working Sundays, but in the real world, that's not what I want. I'd be happy to take Sundays off if I could, if it was possible. But what's really important to see is that it's not really your fault. And I want everybody to know that this is not your fault, that it's just a matter of, you know, you had some really awesome expectations, or maybe you didn't. But whatever has happened is you followed the models that have been shown to you. You've looked at your colleagues, you've looked at the profession, you've showed up, you've done the work, you've kept your prices competitive and all these things, and you're living with those results. But it's not something you consciously chose for yourself. So I want to talk, and this is a really important piece, and we'll talk about the solutions now, but you have the ability to change it. Whatever your practice looks like now, you are one decision away from starting to do something about it. And I think it can get overwhelming sometimes when we look at our practices and it's not exactly what we want, or it's like, how do I even fix it? Or this is just what I've seen for a few decades. It doesn't seem like anything else is possible. But I want everybody who's listening to know for sure that you're one decision away from starting to fix your pricing. You're one decision away from finding ways to work less hours. You're one decision away from serving your clients at a better level and all that. And I want to dive into this with you guys because, you know, we really want to also talk about, you know, the way that you can solve this. There's two things that we've decided would be the most crucial for solving this problem and falling back in love with your dream and your practice. And so ultimately, Rick and Mike, I want you guys to hit on this, but what we talked about was that, number one, it's about getting more meaningful work, and number two, it's about getting paid really well for that. And when those things start to come into place, that's when you get your practice back, and it all starts with the decision to move in that direction. So Rick, Mike, love to hear from you guys about the meaningful work and about getting paid really well.
Yeah, you're actually hitting, Matt, on a really crucial point, because you're talking about this decision and what's possible. And where I think most accountants get stuck, you know, we talked about the practice that you're not loving anymore, even if you're not working weekends. Some do, some don't. That's not relevant. But what matters is we don't stop to realize there are other possibilities. We accept current reality as all there is. And if you start with that assumption, you've got nowhere to go. There's nowhere to go. If this is what it is, great. Convince yourself it's okay and live with it, but you don't have to. The truth is, especially in today's world, our profession has evolved. The market has evolved. And we do have options as professionals, as accountants, as bookkeepers. We have options. And those options can lead us to having a practice that we truly love working in. And you just have to really step back and ask yourself, if anything was possible, if I could shape my practice any way I wanted, what would that really start to look like? That's the kind of thinking you need to engage in. Mike, I know you coach accountants around this pretty often. I'd love to get your perspective on that.
And you're absolutely right. It's stepping back, one, removing yourself from the situation and saying, why did I get into this from the beginning? What do I really want to do? And many of the people out there, they wanted to make an impact on people's lives, businesses, the community. They wanted to be of service, not just behind a desk and not just working grueling hours, working weekends or not working weekends, but just constantly just working and being on the grind or feeling that they're on the grind. So I appreciate when you say step back, because often I'll ask accountants, what do you really want? What does that look like? And they want to make a difference. But because they're so boggled down, they can't. So to do so, you have to ask yourself, where's the most impact you can make with your clients, particularly your business clients? There's a sea of business owners out there looking, hoping to get unstuck, to really make it to that next level. And I know, because we see the smiling faces from the accounts that we work with. You know, they beam when they're able to say, I helped this business move from 500,000 to 1 million. I helped this business who was on the brink of death come back and be successful because it changed their family's life. Not that they were just successful, but it changed their life and their family's life. That's so fulfilling for these people. And I know the accountants out there want to step in and play that role. But Rick, as you said, it requires them to step back and saying, am I doing the things necessary to allow me to play that position, to play that role with my clients?
Yeah, there's a lot of wonderful possibilities. And one thing that I think we can all see in this world today, if you look at what's happening in business and what's happening around the planet, to be relevant, we have to reinvent ourselves periodically. We have to rethink, what am I really about? And what do my clients really want from me? And if you're willing to at least explore that possibility, what we can all tell you from direct experience is that accountants who choose to move in this direction and ask themselves, how would I love to spend my time? What kind of clients do I want to work with? What do I want to be doing? What do I want my lifestyle to look like? If anything was possible, anything were possible, what would it look like? And when you start thinking that way, possibilities open up. What I can tell you, and this resonates with what Mike just said, is there's a ton of business owners out there that would love to have you engage with them in a more meaningful, involved way in their business. There are ways to do that. There are ways to take our expertise, our experience, our years of knowledge, and work with clients in a more meaningful way, make a lot more money in the process, and as a result of that, drop or step away from a lot of the routine rote work that we don't love, and it doesn't even have a big future because a lot of the compliance work is going to be gobbled up by artificial intelligence and those sorts of things. It's already happening in our profession. It's only going to happen further. So if you don't love your practice and you're fed up with it, that can be a great thing if you use it as a catalyst to really rethink the possibilities and move forward. Make sense?
Yeah, I love it. I think that's a great point. So I want to just kind of surmise some of the things that we talked about, and then I want to actually share an offer with anybody who's listening now. But basically, what we wanted to cover today, and I appreciate Rick and Mike, I appreciate you guys so much, and the unique angles that you have, having experience coaching with so many accountants before. You guys for a few decades have really seen every piece of it. And so what I love is that we're not just sharing stories with you guys, but we're sharing the summation of the wisdom and the knowledge that you guys have accumulated. So I appreciate you guys every time for sharing and getting on these videos and taking time out to do that. So what we wanted to cover today is we wanted to talk about how to love your practice again. And so we talked about how, what's happening is a lot of accountants, most accountants have lost that excitement. They've lost the enthusiasm and they've lost the luster, and they've even lost a sense of that big purpose of why am I showing up every day and doing this work. And there's no doubt about it that we're hard workers and we can get in there and do the work and do it for decades, but that's not what this conversation was about. And so we talked about how that shows up, how keeping our nose down and grinding can get work done, but also can keep us away from really feeling fulfillment. And so what we said is, and I love that you guys shared this, is ultimately that there's a few things you need to do to get the love back in your relationship with your practice. So number one is that you have to step back. You really have to step back and question and start to honestly take an honest audit or inventory of what's really going on inside your head. And then ultimately to be able to look back and to find ways to see if you're doing the most meaningful work you can be doing, to see if you're doing work that's really purpose-driven and things like that that are really serving your clients and their results, or if it's just work that you have to do that's grinding out numbers and working your butt off. And there is a difference, and there's a way to fall back in love with your firm as you do that work. The other thing is getting paid well. And there's a very big difference. I've heard somebody share with me recently on a call that they feel like there's more work than money. And so if you're feeling like there's more work than money, then there's, having more money, it's not about money. It's really, truly not about money. But it certainly helps when you're getting paid very well for what you're doing, when your clients can afford it and they feel great about it and all those things. So there was another thing that I wanted to just talk about and hit on is make sure that you're getting paid for the work you do. And the last thing, and this is what I wanted to share with everybody watching, is that if you want to have a conversation, if you want some help and support in stepping into this space where you can really fall back in love with your practice, back in love with your clients, back in love and showing up every day, and at the same time get some of your time back, start working with clients that you love, even improve relationships with existing clients, then we want to help you out. And so basically, Rick and I have set aside some time in the next couple of days to just chat with you. And in this conversation, we want to help you get some breakthroughs. We want to help you get some clarity, and we want to help you figure out how you can fall back in love with your practice, how you can really step back with some guidance and take an honest inventory of what's going on, and then to be able to move through that. And so our job is to chat with you, to dive really deep into your firm, take a little bit of time to do that. Sometimes they're about 45 minutes to an hour. We want to dive into that with you. We want to look at your firm, and then we want to look at where you want to go. And our job not just to help you get clarity, but to help you look at what that path needs to look like. How do I get from where I am now to where I want to go? We've been doing this for a while. We can get a lot done in 45 minutes. So I hope if you're interested in getting some support, if you want to just chat about how to do this, let us know. In the post, there's going to be a link to book a call with us. It's called the Breakthrough Call, and we'd be very happy to do that. There's a quick few-minute assessment on there just to make sure that we have some information to make the call more efficient. And then ultimately, you pick the day you want to do it, and we'll talk to you in the next couple of days. We do ask one thing. That you show up on this call, that you're totally open-minded, that you're a firm owner who's looking for solutions and who's genuinely willing to implement good solutions when they see them. And the other thing is, please do not show up on this call if you know everything. If you know how to do it, if you think your way works, then awesome, and that's cool, but we don't need to chat about a better way. So if you got the answers, even if they don't produce the results you want, that's fine. So we want to have an honest conversation is what we're saying. So with that, guys, I hope this helped you fall in love with your practice. I encourage you to get on the phone with us. We can definitely help you with the breakthrough call. And Rick, Mike, thank you guys so much again for the time and connecting. And I look forward to doing many more of these videos with you very soon. Thanks, guys. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.